What is it about great lyrics that move us so deeply? What techniques are these writers employing to supercharge the words in their songs with such profound meaning? How does a great songwriter think? Welcome to Sittin' with Jimi. This is the channel where we discuss all things creative because creativity is a way of life. Before we get rolling, hit the subscribe button and bell icon so you never miss a video. I make these videos for motivated, creative, independent artists just like you who are looking to get more out of the artistic process. So what gives with great lyrics? What does it mean to think like a songwriter? There are thousands of videos on YouTube teaching the craft of songwriting. Formulas, rhyme scheme, phrasing, all the individual technical skills that are important for making a competent song form. I use the term song form because learning to build and structure a song in a way that is technically correct doesn't necessarily make you a great songwriter or a great lyricist. It can certainly make you a competent songwriter, and a lot of writers will stop there. A huge portion of the listening public will confuse competent songwriting for great songwriting because of how watered down and mediocre the majority of mainstream songs are at the moment. Form has really surpassed authenticity in mainstream songwriting, and that sucks. There's a lot of naked emperors walking around these days. If you are still with me and are interested in something deeper and more authentic, I encourage you to develop a discerning mind when it comes to listening to songs, and learn to separate great songs from competent song forms. Keep your critical mind sharp and recognize when you are listening to a great song. One truly great song can teach you more in 3 minutes than 1,000 competent song forms could probably ever show you. And yes, to a degree, what constitutes a great song is subjective. We are talking about art. I get that. So, develop your own critical viewpoint and let it lead you to influences that will be most impactful to your writing. Learn to tune out the noise. There is a lot of it. I spent the morning listening to some great songs with great lyrics. Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, Radiohead, Nick Drake, Nick Cave, Josh Ritter, Tom Waits. There's one fundamental element that makes these writers' lyrics so damn compelling. Every song I listened to this morning, songs that I consider great, all use this one technique. And the beauty of this technique is that it's not a formula. And every individual who employs it will imbue their lyrics with their own idiosyncrasies and ideas. Each one of the songwriters that I just mentioned uses free associating when they write, which means they're taking one thing that has no real logical connection to another thing, and they're superimposing these two things one on top of the other, using emotion as a kind of song glue. Here's a great example. In the first lyrical stanza of Joni Mitchell's masterpiece, Both Sides Now, she sings, "Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way." Angel hair, ice cream castles, and feather canyons. 3 distinct and appropriately vivid images that Mitchell is superimposing one on top of the other and kind of making them belong together by applying the wistful emotional anchor of "I've looked at clouds that way." She's seen all of these unrelated specific things, each one a metaphor for the various parts of her life, and she's reflecting on the bigger picture. She sees the illusory nature of all of these things. She gets really specific with details and imagery, and then zooms way out at the end of the verse. Clouds are always changing, always shifting, hard to hold on to. And of course, Joni Mitchell is not consciously aware that she's doing this. She's not employing a tactical strategy to manipulate our emotions as a listener. She's not trying. How does she do that? She thinks like a songwriter. Songwriters like Mitchell aren't just songwriters when they sit down and put pen to paper. They have trained into their being the skill of free associating. This particular song is really relevant as an example because we are talking about finding meaning in the clouds, which is something that kids do naturally when they are young and more open to the magic of the world. As we grow up, most of us learn to disregard our imagination, but a songwriter takes their imagination really seriously. They pay attention to it. The attention that they feed it grows and makes it more powerful, more high resolution. The skill of perceiving the world through a metaphorical lens that is open to the way that everything is related gives way to instincts that make songwriting a natural extension of being. Take your imagination seriously and practice putting your mind to work, making unrelated things belong together through emotional storytelling. The weirder and more unrelated the images you choose, the better, in a way. I was walking in the woods the other day, as I often do, thinking about this concept and putting it into practice. The first two unrelated things that came to my mind were swamp and Chevrolet. I don't know why, but that's just what my mind wanted to do. So I let it do it, and I took it seriously. I brought these words, swamp and Chevrolet, back home, and I wrote this. I better get ready and put to bed the want that's heavy as the Chevy in the Round Lake swamp, steady as a hammer to the window of the past, grimmer than a swimmer, free from a crash. A topic I gravitate towards a lot in my writing is confrontation and reconciliation with the past. Here, my writing took me to a scene of someone escaping a sinking Chevrolet that has crashed into a swamp. The specifics here, car, swamp, hammer, ground the story in really tactile images, while the larger emotional story brings these unrelated images together. The form I use is just icing on the cake, not the cake. Are these great lyrics? Maybe, maybe not. But in practicing thinking this way, I grow my imagination and become more playful with language. And that, my creative friends, is what songwriting is really all about. Playing with words and language so constantly and in a way obsessively that it becomes who you are and what you do naturally. Take your imagination seriously. Practice free associating the images and concepts that it shows you when you pay attention to the bizarre stuff it's doing. It's doing really weird stuff, you guys. Pay attention to it. A songwriter looks at this weird stuff and says, wait a second, this stuff isn't weird at all. It actually belongs together in a really specific way. Let me show you. A songwriter learns this after enough time spent sort of mining their creative instincts for meaning, even though it doesn't always lead to a masterpiece song every time. Put your creative ideas into action by moving words around on a page, in your mind, on your phone, like you're solving a puzzle. Walk around mumble singing incoherently to yourself for the fun of it and the joy of it. Take your imagination seriously. It is never a waste of time to explore the non-linear path it reveals to you when you pay attention, not when you're a songwriter. And get rid of the idea that songwriting happens only when you sit down and decide, I'm going to write a song right now. Songwriting is a way of life to a true songwriter. Every part of your experience is directly influencing your art. When you begin to know this, it clarifies what you're actually doing when you write. The time spent actually writing the song is so small compared to the life lived leading up to that moment. Fill that life with a voracious appetite for language and poetry and a deep passion for great writing and great art. Feed your imagination until it's robust and flexible. I hope this helps you to see that the goal is not to master forms and tricks. The goal is to think like a songwriter and make playing with language your default mode of being. So what do you think? How do you write your songs? How do you think like a songwriter? I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment. Subscribe to the channel if you like this. It helps it grow. It helps this message spread. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you're flourishing in your art. I hope that you're jamming with your friends. I hope you're writing every day, reading every day. Keep working, guys. Keep moving the needle. All right, we'll see you next time.